Good afternoon. My name is Bob LeVine. I am the founder and CEO of University Consultants of America. We are an independent educational consultancy serving students and families throughout the world, actually on 6 continents, with the college admissions process, graduate admissions process, admissions to any school in the world as long as it speaks English. Before we begin the rest of our discussion today, I want to thank some of our sponsors. I'd like to thank Cosbot Magazine. Cosbot is a monthly publication that supports Indian Americans throughout the state of Florida and beyond. And I've had the good fortune to write a monthly column for Cosbot since 2013. For that, I'd like to thank the editor, Nitish Rele, and you can contact them by going editor@cosbot.com. I would also like to thank NATS, the North American Telugu Society. This is a nonprofit organization serving Telugus throughout the USA, providing social, financial, and educational support services. Do a wonderful job. And if you want to know more, please contact them at info@natsworld.org. That's NATS world.org. And I'd like to say a special thanks to the NATS Tampa Bay chapter for associating UCA with NATS, both locally and throughout the United States. For that, I'd like to thank Prasanth Pinamanini as well as Srinivas Malati. Thank you, and we appreciate your support. Today is an incredible opportunity. It's a chance for everyone in our extended community to talk with a real live dean. We seldom get that chance. And so in your Zoom function, you will see at the bottom, right in the middle, it says chat. Please open up the chat, type in your questions. I will monitor it, and I will be very glad to present your questions to our very special guest. So, who is that fine-looking young gentleman in the other side of the screen? That's Satya Daragupta. He is both the Dean of Admission and the Dean of Enrollment at Tulane University. I think he's going to give us a few words about his experience in higher education, and I know he will say this. He came to America for higher education. Higher education transformed his life. Now he's in a position to transform the lives of so many others. So please, Dean Dattagupta, please tell us a little bit about you, and then we'll move forward. Thanks.
Thank you, and thanks for having me today. Very excited to have this conversation and on this beautiful Saturday afternoon. So again, I'm Satyajit Dattagupta. I go by Satya, which literally means truth in Hindi. I am originally from Bombay, India. I came to the United States at the age of 17 to pursue higher education. I have a degree in computer engineering and computer science, and then I've done my MBA. I was on my way to actually work for JP Morgan to do analysis in banking, but my passion was not there. And I remember calling my dad and saying, you know what, Dad, I'm gonna do this thing called admissions and not do this career in banking and finance and make loads of money. And I heard probably 90 seconds of complete silence on the other end. And eventually my dad said, follow your passion. And I'm glad I did. So I've been in higher education all my life. I started my career at Minnesota. From there, I've been to University of Rochester, which is a top research institution, worked at DePaul University, a liberal arts college, and Washington College. And now I'm the Vice President of Enrollment Management and Dean of Admission at Tulane. I sit on the President's Cabinet. And you know, in many ways, because I'm the Dean of Admission, my job is literally to find the best and brightest students that apply to Tulane. Last year, we had 42,000 applications. We accepted about 11% students. And I love what I do because I think higher education has the ability to transform people's lives. I also think that brand is important. People often say that brand is not. I do think brand is important, but it's about marrying brand with whether or not you'll be happy there. And that's what I like talking to families about, is don't just pick a school based on one rank. Don't just pick a school because someone told you it's a great school. Pick a school based on those things, but also the fact that you yourself think you'll be happy there, it'll be a good fit, right? There's no perfect college, but there's a perfect fit. Um, so that's why I do what I do. I wake up every morning loving what I do. I get to meet young 17-year-olds and talk to them about their future. And because I've seen higher education change my own life, I'm so passionate about this. I do think the college admissions process has become extremely confusing in some ways. Despite the fact that there's more information, I think students are drowning in information, starving for wisdom. So if I can help in any way today or any other day in making this a little easier for students, I'm happy to do so. My goal today really is to just answer questions, shed a little more bit of light to the darkness that is the college admissions process sometimes. And yeah, so I love what I do. A kid from Bombay is now at Tulane, and that's my story. And yeah, so that's me.
I'm going to steal your line about drowning in information and needing the wisdom. But you said something that's very important to us as well, and that is how important fit is. But before we get that, because I know that admissions has to kind of identify fit, what often happens on the side of the students and families is what I consider to be a misperception of the attitude and mood of an admissions department. They feel like it's a place that just filters people out and does a lot of data mining. But you said you love to go to work every day. What does it feel like in the admissions department, and what is kind of the philosophy of not just Tulane, but admissions offices around the US?
Yeah, again, I worked at 4 offices, so I can tell you from my experience that ultimately admissions, I believe, tries to petition for the student. The admissions department is there to help guide students and find the right fit. So unlike what a lot of people think, it's not a group of people that are just sitting and saying no, right? Unfortunately, the byproduct of what we do for a living just turns out that there are decisions that we have to make that can be unpleasant sometimes for families and students on the other end. But you have to remember that it's a group of individuals, human beings that get together that ultimately want what's best for the institution, but also for people who are applying. I find, but again, not to say that data isn't important, not to say that data mining doesn't happen. That's part of the admissions process. You have to find a way to streamline the process. But I can't tell you how much joy I get when I can admit a student that right off the bat doesn't look just on paper like someone because of one number that might be as exciting, but then when you read the application, the essay, the story, you become a champion for that student. So there are those stories, and I can tell you that that's why I come to work. And we never say no to a student without giving it a lot of thought and a lot of consideration. It's not a factory where there's an operation line and you're just saying no based on certain numbers. There's a lot of thought and work that goes into it. And I think when you and I chatted probably a few weeks ago, I told you saying no is hard because I have a child, and I know what it's like to be on the receiving end of a denied decision or a waitlist decision. So believe me that there's a lot of pain that comes from that. And I say that because I say no to 89% of people that apply. So that can be hard sometimes. But the reality is that what I focus on is that when you find that right fit, that right student, and I see their life transform, and I see the joy that they get by coming to the right institution, there's nothing like it. So I think admissions offices are sometimes, and the deans are seen as inhumane robots, but we're all people with hearts that beat. But at the same time, we do have to make some difficult decisions, but a lot of thought goes into it.
Yes, a couple of weeks ago we did speak. I was interviewing several admissions officers, deans, volunteers for an article, and all of them said, please let people know if we don't accept you, it's not a judgment on you. It's not a judgment on the ability of a parent to parent. And we get very frustrated as well because there's just not enough space. And I know that you said fit is important. And people are kind of cavalier about that. It just doesn't feel that way. So I want to disclose my bias. I prefer private universities to public ones. There's generally a size difference. The private schools are generally mid-size and smaller. That makes them more flexible. Tulane runs about 8,600 undergrads. It's actually slightly smaller than Columbia, at least according to some stats. And it's a residential school where people stay for 2 years. Rice University does the same, and others do a little bit longer. That doesn't happen in major schools. The smaller schools do not have great laboratories. They generally don't have graduate programs. The larger schools have incredible assets in graduate schools, but not as many small classes, more large. Tulane, like my alma mater, Harvard, is at mid-sized private university, and it's a totally different experience. And I can't tell you, well, maybe I can. Every time I walk on a public university campus, I know what I'm missing, and it's the human element. So if we differentiate between public and private, and also accept that I'm not a big fan of rankings, and yet I'm going to use one now. Among the private schools in America, Tulane is ranked number 27. This is, if you want to talk about brand, maybe the second tier, but that does not make it second rate. It is very much like any of 100 schools that can be just as good as Harvard or Stanford for the right person. And so we were talking earlier about the same questions you always get. And I'm going to do a short version of that. People are always stressing about the essay and about SATs, particularly this year with COVID and canceled SATs and test optional.
Yeah.
But as I understand Tulane, the essay and the SAT really isn't primary for you.
Yeah. So great observations there. And I obviously am biased towards Tulane being a private school that is a research one, AAU university that, but you know what happens, and before I answer your question about essay and you know what's really important, I will say this, that having worked at a large university, having worked at a very small school, I find medium-sized universities to be a great balance between not being too small where it's claustrophobic and not being so big that you can get lost in the crowd, and yet getting attention from world-class faculty. So yeah, the admissions process and what's really important. And I keep saying this, and I used to say that pre-COVID too, the most important document in your application is your transcript, because that is a 4-year description, evidence, if you will, of your abilities, of your successes, of your, you know, some failures, of your trends, of the choices that you've made. I have nothing against test scores personally. You know, it does add value in some cases, but, and so does the essay, right? The essay can tell us more about you beyond the numbers, but I'm trying to discern and glean from your application in those 15, 20 minutes that I'm looking at it and my team is looking at it. Will you be successful here academically? This is a rigorous institution. We will push you, we will challenge you. And a transcript shows me how much effort you've put in, how hard you worked. You know, that's the one document that people can't say, you know, is not a reflection of myself. Maybe one semester is not, maybe a year is not, but 4 years are usually, you know, that usually tells a good story. So I always tell students that the transcript has so much value in the application process, even pre-COVID, but mid-COVID, it's even bigger, because if you think about not being able to send your test scores, which a lot of students won't be able to, that document will tell us a story that we're looking for. And you know, for example, at Tulane, our average GPA is a 3.7. The middle 50% is 3.5 to 3.9. That doesn't mean you have to have those scores, but typically students that get admitted fall in those ranges. So it's important for students to know that that is a a piece of information that is of paramount importance in the application process.
For our audience, please remember to use the chat function to ask questions. We have several. I'm going to take them kind of in response to what Dean Dattagupta is saying. One question is, and I'm going to give you my impression before I hear yours. I want to see if I'm on the right track.
Okay.
How does research experience play into the evaluation? And now, the way I see it, correct me if I'm wrong, please, is that research is all about, it's all part of the evaluation of the intellectual capacities so that we can predict the academic, not just direction, but capacity. But as a checking the box, it's not about checking a box. It's about, you know, things like academic passion and those types of things. Is that how you see it?
Yeah, you know, first, I really like this question because we're a Research One institution. We are an institution that has a program called TRIA, Tulane Research Innovation Award, which is awarded to students that are incoming at the freshman level, and they work with faculty directly. For me, it's about quality over quantity, and it's more about passion over you know, checking 10 boxes. So let me expand on that. If you have spent 3 years doing something that you were passionate about and committed yourself to that, that is so much more valuable than you doing 25 experiences for 2 weeks each. So is research important? Yes, absolutely. But I completely agree with you. It's about, you know, how you've applied yourself. And we can decipher pretty easily in the admissions process if this is just a resume filler or if this is a true passion. And I'm looking for the latter, which is, you know, pick 1 or 2 areas that you've cared about. I also understand you're 17 years old. You're not going to be a Nobel Prize winner right now, right? You know, but if you do have opportunities, we love to have seen you take advantage of it. And we do ask questions. We do interviews here where we ask you to explain what you actually mean by that experience. So yeah, 2 for 2 in terms of agreeing with you. I don't know that that'll continue, but so
Probably not.
Yeah,
probably not. You're better at this than I am, or maybe whatever. But we so often get the families, whatever shall I do? I can't get my child a research thing. And you said something that I heard a lot, and I totally agree. We can read through this. We know when the resume is bought and paid for. Is that true?
Yeah, fortunately, that is true. In most cases, and again, at Tulane, it's a little different, right? Because we do have a highly recommended interview. We look at the wide Tulane essay and our application. So the other thing I perhaps forgot to mention is that every application gets at least 2 sets of eyes before we say yes or no. And we spend a good 15 to 20 minutes per person. So you're looking at 40 minutes to review an application between 2 people. And, you know, I'm not bragging, but we are a qualified group of people that know what we're doing, and we can tell when something just doesn't add up.
Another question from the audience has to do with the idea of community,
yeah,
even of community service.
Yeah.
For those who don't know Tulane, this is an important aspect. In fact, you can go to the Tulane Admission website and see Dean Dattagupta in a 3-minute thing talking very seriously about Tulane and its community service. But the question is, because it's timely, how has COVID affected community service and campus culture?
At Tulane, so let me take a quick step back and just tell you that for me, community service at Tulane isn't just about going out and helping people. It's about being a good citizen of the community that you live in. We believe that the 4 years at Tulane, we were #1 in the nation, according to Princeton Review, for students engaged in community service, at the same time as being a top 1% university and being a academic powerhouse. And what we do is we really balance the research with community service. I don't think you can be a successful Tulanean if you don't know what it's like to give back. And I think that's a skill set, a part of your psyche that we try to help develop here, if it's not already developed, which is that life can't just be about taking. There has to be some giving back. And it doesn't have to be money. It can be time, it can be intent, it can be effort. So how has COVID impacted Tulane and community service and campus culture? So I sit on the cabinet, and over the last 4 months, our president and I and the COO and the provost and others on the cabinet have been wrestling with the decision about whether we come back on campus or not. And we made a very difficult, but I believe right decision to come back on campus in a very safe way. But we also realize that everything's not going to be the same, right? Gatherings are limited to 100 people outside, all of that. But you'll be surprised to know that we are going forward with community service events. We are going forward with campus events, and campus culture, while different, is still very much prevalent, very vibrant campus. But our students are telling us that, thank you for bringing us back, because as seniors, a lot of them do not want to spend their senior year virtually. They wanted to be here. So I think our students are being very responsible. And our transmission rate, our positivity rate right now is 0.6%. And we're testing every student twice a week. Again, because we have a school of medicine, and actually a really good school of medicine with path-breaking testing, we're able to get our results back the same day. So, has COVID impacted our campus and campus culture? Yes. But we also are making an effort to not do everything virtually, and actually, instead of doing a community service event with 200 people, we're doing with 10 groups of 20. So it's about being creative. It's also important to make sure the students have an experience, a positive experience.
We just got a question that I don't want to say wrestle with, but we deal with every day, constantly. What works in an essay? What do you look for in an essay? And the first thing I tell everybody is they're not looking for an essay. They're looking for a person. And I've heard admissions people say, we look through the lines. We look through the spaces. It's not about perfect grammar. It's not about the story necessarily. It's about the student, and we understand the families. What does Tulane look for in the essay? Because most of the stuff we see, even the books about great essays, we don't like them. What do you like?
Honesty, genuineness. So even if someone has failed, one of the strongest essays I read is when someone talks about a failure instead of talking about successes, because so many of the essays are about how perfect I am. And we get so many of those. This is a tough one because it's so subjective, right? It's so subjective. It's about what you're reading. But you're right. I mean, I've read a lot of really well-written, horrible essays. And I don't say that in I'm not trying to be condescending. All I'm saying is we're looking for an interesting story sometimes. We're looking for someone who's trying to tell us and making an effort to just portray who they are as a human being. Imperfections are actually admired by us, as opposed to, so my one advice is don't try to be perfect. Because if you try to be perfect, you're not going to be yourself, because you're not. None of us are. My advice is write about something that you're passionate about, where you don't have to have 60 people read it, where you don't have to have people, edit every word. Don't sanitize it too much. It does have to be well written, right? We're not looking for an essay where every word is misspelled, but at the same time, that is not the priority. The priority is a genuine, honest representation of yourself. That's all we ask for. And I think I said this earlier too. You're 17, 18 years old. Most people don't even start understanding what life is till they're 6 or 7 years old. So you really only had 10 years to figure this out. So we're not expecting you to be, world-class athletes or have discovered the cure for cancer. We're just looking for, who are you?
We ask that all the time, and our students hate it when we ask them, who are you? That was a great segue, by the way. A couple weeks ago, another admissions dean said it this way: don't try to be perfect, just be real, just be you. And you said authentic, and one of the things that I think our audience needs to understand, it's not about perfect grammar, punctuation, syntax, or the Chicago manual style. It has been said that worry less about the content and definitely less about the writing, because we're not looking for impressive writing, we're looking for impressive thought and self-reflection. Now, one thing that I do want to give our audience a tip: to the extent that there is a challenge, try not to dwell on the negative. Admissions people are very busy. Don't depress them. Show them how you've overcome, where your grit comes in. But parents, please stop worrying about things like linking verbs and perfect grammar. That's why they're going to school. And so another question came up. And I'm going to give you the question, then I'm going to give you a caveat in advance so that everybody understands. How do you look at applications where there may be a college consultant involved versus those that are not? Now, before we do that, I want everybody to understand, Dean Dattagupta is a good guy. You will see how much he cares and how many great things he's been doing and will do. And I like him. I hope he likes me. He at least pretends to like me. That's good. But most importantly, our relationship as a professional one involves integrity. And here's what I said. And this is full disclosure. I said, look, Dean, if there's a time that we have a student who fits Tulane, I want to be able to give you their name. And that is all. I don't expect you to take somebody because I can pull a string. I just want you to understand that we believe, and we're trying, all of us, to get to the best results. So I'll get back to the question. Professionalized versus rough. Do you notice the difference? Does it bother you?
So two things before I answer your question. One is, you brought up parents. My only one piece of advice to parents is don't be more memorable than the student. And I say that because I interact with a lot of people. Let the student take the lead. In terms of my relationship with, independent counseling and counselors much like yourself, and consultants, and admission counselors, college counselors, anyone can email us and say, hey, we have a great student who'd be a great fit. That doesn't mean you're pulling a string. You're just telling me, hey, this student really loves your school. I think that's perfectly fine. I think independent counseling has a real space in this if done with high integrity and, which I believe you do. And it helps students specifically in certain schools where they don't have access to the kind of college counseling that some of them, might want or deserve in certain cases. So, we work well with whoever it is that is looking out for the student. But we can tell, again, I have a director of admission, Jeff Schiffman, who has in the past brought me files where something just doesn't seem right and looks rough and, or something that just seems imperfect or inaccurate.
Smells bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can tell. I mean, we can tell. I mean, I won't use the terms we use in our office, but there have been times we have challenged our students like, and most of the time they have proved themselves. There's this idea that higher is always better. And there is a concern that 9th graders or 10th graders may slip a little bit in their classes and that somehow that'll destroy their lives. We tend to see that when kids get to be seniors, they just kind of, I know I don't have any chance. That's never been my impression. And in fact, I always tell people, please Google the words college admissions grit to see the idea of growth and overcoming a challenge. But from the Tulane perspective, if there are a few B's, but we see an upward trend, you good with that?
Yeah, all in context, right? So yes, the short answer is yes. Are we good with that? It depends on what you mean by good with that. The reality is that we will dissect the transcript into 9th, 10th, 11th, and senior year. And we'll ask, we'll look at, okay, look, I've gotten a B in life. I hope you have. And the reality is that, that happens. And 1B or 2Bs or 3Bs can't be the reason why someone doesn't get admitted. Now, if there's a trend, right, and it's that the student is just not trying hard, that's a very different thing. Life happens in 9th grade or 10th grade. And we absolutely look at upward trends. We look at trajectory. We look at the story. And that's what holistic admissions is about. It's not about just one number or one letter grade.
And when you say looking for the story, you're not talking about the story in an essay. You're talking about the person, yes?
The person's story, the person's progression from being a freshman in high school. So the story, when I say story, it's their academic story. How have they progressed through high school?
Got it. One question that comes up every year, and it has to do with preference or lack of preference with certain groups, whether it's location, socioeconomic, ethnicity, nationality, what have you. And now there's a greater concern without test scores that somehow there will be some less than perfect distribution. The first thing in my observation is for these schools like yours, is that diversity is a very important part of the education. Mm-hmm. But the other one is, and I've heard admissions people, and even you today, have said it's going to be a bit more difficult without those test scores. Will there be a difference in the way the outcomes, way the class is demographically developed, if you will? Or is that something that's always part of a dean's job?
So diversity for me is so much more than just one thing, right? It's race, it's ethnicity, it's nationality, it's diversity of thought, it's socioeconomic, it's area of interest, it's where you come from. My job as VP of Enrollment and Dean of Admission is to build a class that can represent the world and the country that we're part of, with students who can succeed here academically and challenge Tulane as much as Tulane will challenge them. I don't think this year is any different than that from that perspective. I don't think that my shaping of the class will be any less or more in terms of diversity. I'm still going to be looking for great students that come from different backgrounds. But I think that's a misnomer that in some ways this will propel certain groups above others, at least at Tulane.
Very good. Two questions about the application beyond the main essays. One was about teacher recommendations, another about the list of extracurricular activities. Now, the way we look at it, particularly for the private schools, you're looking for contribution to the group, not necessarily qualification. And contribution happens outside the classroom, but let's face it, the application is not to be a professor. You're a student, you're a taker in the classroom. So we see private schools as looking for what you give to the overall thing. And that tends to be that list of extracurriculars. But the finding of a student happens, sometimes we call it read or love. It happens in essays. It can happen in interviews. And we see it as happening in teacher recommendations. What do you see as the role of the various pieces of an application in getting to the subjective, human, emotional, yes, I want that student?
There are certain pieces of the application that heal the wounded, but they don't raise the dead. What I mean by that is that there's certain pieces of the application that can help us understand the student, but that particular piece won't be the reason why someone's admitted. I don't want to get into details of which piece is what, but what I can tell you about teacher recommendations is that it tells us how the student took part in a classroom, what kind of commitment did they have in the subject that was taught by this teacher, and it's definitely considered because what we look at is, okay, so this student was someone that never asked questions, that just didn't take part, didn't contribute to the classroom environment, they might not be a very good fit at Tulane, because Tulane is actually a very vibrant classroom setting where everyone is expected to engage. We're medium size, average class size of 25, student faculty ratio of 8:1. So in that way, it is definitely something that we look at. Extracurricular, same thing, quality over quantity. 25 experiences or 1 week, just that's not what we're looking for. I'm looking for 4 or 5 things that you've cared about, or 2 or 3 things that you've cared about outside the classroom and that you follow through. Be it, even if you held a job, if it was community service, or it was a research opportunity, or an internship, or an instrument that you play, right? So it's, again, but we do look for that dimension, right? Because Tulane isn't just about you in the classroom. It's also equally important to be a part of a community, a society, a group of people. Who are you outside the classroom? Do you actually care about anything outside the classroom? So it's something that we definitely look at and care about. Because of COVID, we'll be looking at it a little differently, knowing that people will not have had enough opportunities. But I'll be curious. So you've been home for 5 months. What did you do? Did you, help people out in your community? Did you do anything virtually? So I think there's still an expectation that students engage themselves in some ways, but it doesn't have to be the standard definition that was pre-COVID.
Yeah, the way we look at it, when you live at a school, you're there 24/7, 365, almost 4 years, and the best schools take advantage of all of their assets. And the greatest asset, qualitatively and quantitatively, are the students. And so that's why you're looking for those contributions, as you said. But let's kind of turn it in another direction, as we're getting a lot of questions. And please, again, use the chat function, because we're getting some good stuff here. Tulane has some scholars programs, a Pathways to Medicine program, some real special stuff that I know is near and dear to your heart. So give people a sense of those special programs, why they're there, who they're for, anything going to help our audience understand your university better.
Yeah, so before I get into the scholars program and the special pathways, something that I've cared about here is that we are one of few schools that offers significant merit-based aid. So we do care about offering, recognizing academic achievement by offering certain merit scholarships. In addition to that, I've found that there are a lot of really outstanding students that have a pretty good idea what they want to do. Even though Tulane is a place where you don't have to pick your major when you apply, you don't apply to a specific school. We have the School of Science and Engineering, School of Public Health, we have the School of Architecture, School of Liberal Arts, and School of Business. You don't have to pick any of those majors when you apply, but if I admit you, you can literally go into any of those schools. There's one program that I've started that's really near and dear to my heart. It's called the Tulane Pathway to Medicine. And what this is for a small group of students, it's a very selective program. I started it with the Dean of School of Medicine. We admit you into the School of Medicine and Tulane at the same time. And you don't have to take the MCATs, you are automatically admitted. You take the MCATs for purposes of transcripting and record keeping, but you don't have to have a certain score. And then, so that's one program, and it's very popular. Unfortunately, it's very selective, and a lot of my Indian doctor friends have kids who are applying to that. So it's very popular among the Indian community specifically. We also have this great program called Creative Scholars, which is a program which is also direct admission to the School of Medicine, but it's only for students who are liberal arts majors, which is a really interesting dichotomy in many ways. So you have to be a student in the School of Liberal Arts and major in things like, sociology or music, or and you have to take certain courses, but you are admitted directly, and you apply for that in your freshman year at Tulane. We also have 2 full scholarship programs called the Dean's Honor Scholars and the Paul Tulane Award, which is 4 full years of tuition, scholarships where you don't have to pay towards the tuition. There's a separate application for it. We look for students who, again, are academically qualified, but also for students who have a passion for Tulane. I offer about 70 of those each year. Yeah, you know, the thing is that because Tulane is such a varied, diverse institution with so many different programs, there's 4+1 programs in School of Business, and public health is becoming extremely popular. Extreme, and again, I don't know if you know this, but Tulane was the first school of public health, and we were created as an institution to find a cure for smallpox and cholera. And now we're actually, you know, one of the forerunners in working on a vaccine and testing. So this is now taken off, right? So I'm sure you know, medicine is a study of how a disease works through a human. School of Public Health is a study of how the disease sort of works its way through populations and people, and how you control that and prevent that. And when it does happen.
Any chance we can move the CDC to New Orleans on Tulane's campus, please?
No, but you know, I mean, I guess my point being that there's so many numerous opportunities for students pursuing different passions. And because we have a School of Medicine, a PhD in public health, and master's in public health, there's a lot of pathways to that we've created for undergraduate students.
One of the things that we really love about Tulane is that you get this amazing education, but as you said, Tulane is very interested in providing merit aid and financial aid and help. So if you will, the cost benefit analysis and bang for the buck is amazing, where other schools that provide basically a similar education, but with a more renowned name, because Harvard's older than the United States, it just is. But the other thing I love is this idea of liberal arts going towards medicine. One of the things I worry about when students go on a pure medical thing is they don't see the other pieces of that puzzle that'll be so important as a doctor, because essentially there's three things in coming to a diagnosis. Certainly you look at the clinical examination, you look at the diagnostic tests, but that has to correlate with the history. And it's always said, you treat the patient, not the disease. And I often say, look, when these things are pure science, much of which will go obsolete, and you don't get the other pieces, you're getting an incomplete experience. And it sounds like what you're telling me is that Tulane recognizes that there is another way towards medicine.
You know, I think you brought up something that I'm very passionate about. So I'm going to talk about this for, you know, a minute or so, if that's okay. And this is why I love coming to work. Look, we are a research one school. We have some of the top faculty doing research that is path changing. But because of the fact that we are such a well-rounded institution, we believe in making our students T-shaped people, which is breadth across different disciplines and depth in one or two areas. Very important, because what happens is if you don't have that, and a very real example of this is Tulane winning the NASA competition 2 years ago, competing with top aeronautical engineers, undergraduate programs in aerospace engineering, when we don't even have an aerospace engineering program. The reason we won that is because our students know how to think, right? Our students that took part in that were people who were economics and engineering double majors. They were history and pre-med majors. They were business and architecture majors, right? I mean, it's so important for you when you become a doctor or no matter whatever it is, you need to know how to think. You need to know how to problem solve. You need to know what the world is beyond just what's been taught to you. And this Creative Scholars Program was designed just for that. Who says that you cannot be a history major and become a great doctor? Who says you can't be a great sociology major at the undergraduate school, take some courses in medicine, in biology, and then go to School of Medicine? And we found our Creative Scholars, quite honestly, to be so successful because their brain, when they look at a patient, looks at it very differently, right? They have this ability, like you said, to treat the patient and not just study, because they will study the disease, right? That's what School of Medicine is for. They're going to go through a rigorous, 4+ years. But the undergraduate experience isn't just about that, right? So it's great that you know you want to be a doctor, and we will help you get there. But you can be pre-med and do something else. And people say, well, isn't that a distraction? You can't look at a distraction as it's actually a supplement that is needed for a lot of students to make you a better doctor. And we find that, and that's why, Tulane alums, one of our Tulane alums became the Surgeon General in America because of that, is because they know how to speak to people, they know how to problem solve, and you'll find a lot of Tulane doctors actually becoming leaders in medicine, not just becoming just doctors. Nothing wrong with just being a doctor, but they also know how to lead.
We're getting some specific questions about scholarships for international students, PSAT, where they take AP. And one of the things I want our audience to understand is that operators are standing by. The admissions office has email capacity and telephone, and they're dying to talk to you and help you understand the school in a different way. Finishing up with jettisoning off the medical thing, our philosophy is this: college is not just about collecting knowledge. Knowledge is things, knowledge is stuff. Certainly there are skills, but I think one of the most important things is perspectives. How to see things from all angles, whether that comes from coming from a different ethnicity or different nationality, or just a different religion or a different point of view, because those are tools that you can use, whether in medicine or otherwise. But that's a very specific track. One of our questions is this. We hear it all the time. I don't know what I want to do. Is it okay to apply undecided, or are they just going to think too immature?
So just as far as the scholarship question, email me at Satyajit, Satyajit @tulane.edu. I will give you answers to any specific questions. The reason we both don't discuss specifics here is because, everyone's case is different. We do offer scholarships from $5,000 all the way to full tuition. There's no minimum GPA, no minimum score, but your case might be so different than the others. So we like to answer those specifically. Just email me, either me or one of my team members will definitely reach out to you. Now, so the question that I lost my train of thought. So your question was about
applying undecided. Is that a problem? Is that a benefit? Do I need to fix something? Do you care?
It's a really good question. And I go back to when I was 17, and that's my philosophy as a dean, which is that you are too young to know exactly what you want to do.
Thank you.
And someone may tell you they think they know what they want you to do, right? So two very different things. And because at Tulane you don't apply to a certain school, there is no disadvantage or advantage, frankly, to applying with a School of Business major or a undecided. I mean, 27% of my incoming class this year had zero idea what they wanted to do. The rest of them were undecided, business, undecided, science and engineering, but 27% literally had no idea. But that's what college is for, right? And that's why you come to a place like Tulane, which is Research One, which is a top school, but you get to try different subjects and see what it's like. And, look, I get it. We all want to be successful. I want my son to be successful. I know you all want your kids to be successful, and they will be. But I hope you also want them to be happy, because that's so important, right? And I had this long discussion with a parent whose child wants to pursue sociology, but they want them to pursue business. And ultimately, the student is interested in business, but they just don't know that they love it yet, right? And they don't want to go through 4 years doing something that they literally don't care for. So I actually get really excited when I talk to students who are undecided and have the courage to tell me that they're undecided, because there's nothing wrong with that. College is supposed to transform you and change your life. And if you come to college knowing exactly what you want to do with a closed mind, you're not going to make the best use of these 4 years. And we will make sure that you find your path. We have advisors, we'll guide you. You have to declare your major in your second year. But don't be in a rush to jump at a time when no one's asking you to. So take your time. Life is long. I keep reminding students, people say life is short. Life is short, life is also long. You will work for 45 years. So take some time in your first year of college to really find out what you want to do. And if medicine is what you want to do, you do that. But also see if you have an interest in something else that can open your open up your mind.
We just got a comment in the chat. If your kid's successful but miserable, that success means nothing at all. And you said we want them to be happy. A lot of people think that's frivolous, that the student is happy that they're studying. But here's the observation at some of the best schools in America and in the world. If you're depressed and you're miserable, you don't perform. So when we talk about fit, to me, fit is everything. Because if you're miserable at MIT, then you're miserable and you're just not going to do well there or in life. And so one question was this: how do you find fit? And they say, do you do a tour? Do you do this? Do you do that? And we're going to disagree on this one. We very much say, okay, take the tour. Don't take it so seriously. See the place, but not to pick the school, to understand what works for you. There are better ways than looking at rankings, tours, info sessions, and all of what we might consider to be the industrial marketing stuff. And I think it comes back to the recognition that there are people there who actually want to talk to you and help you. I think it starts with admissions. It continues on with advisors. And I want tell me if you're right or I'm right or wrong on that, because I like always to be right, but if I'm wrong, it's fine. But you've said several times today about how you, the dean, talks to students and gets to know students. And I'm wondering if our audience is wondering, do you? Do you really? Do you? You've got two important jobs: Vice President of Enrollment, Dean of Admission. Are the students important to you, or are you just admin?
I do this for the students, and that's something that I, quite honestly, when I'm having a tough week, when I talk to a student, more often than not, that's the highlight of my week. I do something called Q&A with the dean, where I talk directly to about 1,000 students for 2 hours once a month. I don't have to do that. Most deans probably wouldn't do it, but to me, that's the reason why I come to work, right? Ultimately, if I can influence some students' minds, even if they don't come to Tulane, I talk to them about the college search process, about fit. What is fit, right? Fit is, it's like marriage, right? You will meet a lot of people, and someone you meet will, have certain likes, certain dislikes, where your paths just don't seem to be on the same, together. But you will not meet a perfect person. You will not meet a person that is exactly, to the T what you had dreamt that your wife or your husband or your partner would be growing up. But then you meet that one person for whom you don't have to change yourself. You meet that one person for whom it's easy, it's comfortable, you feel good about yourself, you feel better. That's what college a right fit is. A right fit is an institution that meets a lot of your requirements, right? So if you want to become a doctor, if you want to become an engineer or a lawyer, and you want to go to a prestigious school, it might not be a top 10 or an Ivy League, which is something that I know a lot of people sometimes get drawn to. Also, they only have X number of spots, so you have to remember that. What are the people like? What are the students like? When you talk to them, are they standoffish? Do they care about the school? One thing I'm really proud about is Tulane this year was ranked #3 in the entire country for the happiest student body. #3 in the country for the students that love their college. And there's something about that, right? I mean, if you go through life, and I really like that comment, you can be successful and miserable. And I met a lot of people like that. And I was on that path, to be very honest with you, because I was letting someone else define what success meant for me. I had to define what success meant for me myself. So you define what success means for you, and fit for you. I mean, I don't know that I disagree with you completely about the fact that the tour and all of that is not important. I think it's a part of a big decision where if you can take a tour, it gives you a sense of the campus. But all you're doing is you're literally seeing some buildings and, how many trees they have. But it's really the people, right? And you can meet those people virtually. You can meet, I mean, this is you meeting people. It's emailing admission staff, seeing if they're responding back. It's going on these chats. The people make the place. And when you come to campus, if you have a group of students who are cutthroat, just caring about themselves, then that's a very different kind of environment. Tulane, I take a lot of pride in the fact that our students want to succeed, but they want to see others succeed as well. This is not a cutthroat environment. This is, let's work together so that we're all successful. So again, I could go on for the next 2 hours about this because I feel so strongly about fit, but it's all the things you said. And it's about that, it's about the people. Because you have to, again, remember this, always make a list in your mind of things that you're looking for. Don't discount the fact that you may change your mind. So never pick a school because you are going there because of this program. Or what if you don't care about that program a year from now? So pick a school that has a number of things that you like about. And then, ultimately, if that one thing goes away, there's still 20 other things that you still like about that place.
I'm going to remind everybody, we're going to finish up in a couple of minutes, but there is still time for a few more questions. Put them in the chat. We have had a request for the dean's email. We will send that out. That's what the registration does. It allows us that contact information. Internally, what we say about Tulane is it about people, not about the buildings. But we often get this question. You're in New Orleans. Yeah. Isn't Tulane just a party school?
You talked about being happy isn't always being about being frivolous. Having fun isn't always about partying. So that's how I explain it to people. I had the same, to be very honest with you, I grew up in Bombay, and I always thought about New Orleans as, city of Mardi Gras, the city of Bourbon Street. Then I went to school in Minnesota. And I have to be honest, and when I was taking this job, I was moving a very young family here. I have a child who's 5 years old. He was 2 then, 1 then actually. I've been here 4.5 years. And this place has blown my mind in terms of, so is there one street where people go crazy? Yes, it's called Bourbon Street. But no one at Tulane actually looks at that as part of their life. That's a tourist street that people go. It's like the Strip in Vegas, right? I mean, but New Orleans is such a rich city, the city of, food and music and culture and, great people, great, great stories. And I've fallen in love with the city because it offers so much to me, my family, and our students. We're in this place called Uptown New Orleans, which is away from downtown. So you can go there if you want that life, but we're in a very different part of the community. So do we have fun? Yes. But we also believe that these 4 years will not come back. And we want our students to go through life knowing that they can enjoy themselves a little bit. Mardi Gras is part of who we are, but it's not the Bourbon Street Mardi Gras. It's about people getting together and celebrating. So yeah, our students are happy, not frivolous. They have fun. Our party's part of it. Probably not any more than any other college, to be honest with you. But our students love our school and our city.
I'd like to leave with this final inquiry.
Yeah.
You're behind a door that many don't get a chance to see within.
Yeah.
What would you say is the most misunderstood thing about admissions and the university education so that we can get rid of at least one big myth? What can you tell our audience? Look, I know you hear this, but this is really how it is.
It's a really good question. And well, first, I think I already answered it in some ways, which is that admissions is made of human beings who are looking for imperfect human beings to come to the institution and make the institution a better place. So that's one. Second is higher isn't always better. Just because someone has a 36 ACT or a 1600 SAT and a 4.0 GPA doesn't mean that they will definitely get in. Strive to be yourself. Do well on the tests and school, right? But don't try to make yourself so perfect that you actually miss out on high school. Because the one big misconception is that we're a group of people that just sit and look at, this is your score, this is your GPA, you're admitted. No, it is so much more than that. It is such a holistic process where there's so many nuances to it. People will always ask me, what's the minimum GPA? What's the minimum SAT? There isn't. It's about the entire application in its totality. And then it's not a black box. People say, we send our application into a black box and then all of a sudden a decision comes out. It's actually a really well thought out process where we go through severe layers of scrutiny before someone gets admitted or denied. So know that when you're applying, there's a group of people whose ultimate desire is to help you, and to look at it like that. And my last thing is, and this is not just about the admissions process at Tulane, it's about everywhere. The world is becoming a place where everyone wants to send their students to maybe 5 schools. They're not going to be able to. There's just not enough spots. Don't close your eyes to really, really good schools. And I'm not just saying Tulane, that may not be ranked 1, 2, or 4. And then if you don't get into that, think that your life is over. Your life is not over. There are a number of really good institutions. Open your minds to some really good schools. Yeah, brand is important. You will have that degree for the rest of your life, but your experience and what you become is even more important. So I'll leave you with that, because that's why I do what I do. And I wish you all the best in your search process. Have fun. Try to not be so competitive that you lose sight of why you're doing this. You're doing this because you want to go to a place where you'll be happy, where you'll be challenged, and where you can make a great life out of yourself. So reach out to me if any questions, but I really enjoyed this.
Well, I do too, and I know some of our audience did, because one person just said, I am now convinced my child is applying to Tulane University. And they should. It's really an amazing place. And I thank you so much for taking the time, because sometimes we tell people things, but when they hear it from the big guy, it is different. And I would again like to thank Cosbot Magazine for being our media sponsor. I'd like to thank NATS for its support through the years. And we'll send out a follow-up. To those in the audience who may know others who could benefit from this talk, and there are many, we've recorded it. We're going to find a way to put it up. So please spread the word. This is great stuff. Thank you for spending, your Saturday afternoon with us. You didn't have to. I think that speaks a lot to your humanity as well as the humanity of the place, where I don't want to say you run it. I want to say that you live it. It just seems like it's a community. So Dean Dattagupta, appreciate it very much. And to all you out there, thank you so much for joining us. I'm Bob LeVine, CEO and founder of University Consultants of America. If you need us, you know how to find us, but have a great day.